Good morning. I am really sorry to be late. I was rushing around. I really wanted to share a whole lot of different things that you probably have never seen before, and so I was going through my archives trying to pull out images and pictures that I could present to you that go back quite a while. So I do apologize for being late in terms of the live stream, particularly if you've been waiting around for the last 4 or 5 minutes. I totally understand. Okay, so today's topic is a little bit different compared to what we've done before. I'm going to just flick over to my face, have a look at the chat, say hi to everybody, and then we will definitely get started. There we go. So show that. Okay, so we've got here John Lewis. Hopefully Johnny's still here. Darren's here. The Carter Videos is here. Cool. Kanoko's here. Hello. Joe's here. Alex here. How's it going? All right. Okay. I'm going to get rid of my earplugs because the sound seems to be coming through fine, and the video is working fine as well. The good news is I have some images that you probably have never seen before, and they are me dungeon mastering. There are some that involve the groups that I have dungeon mastered. So if you've never seen them before, you will get to see some images of them and of me being a dungeon master, even if you don't get to see me actually dungeon mastering. You'll start to understand a little bit more about the hats too, once you see that sort of stuff. Now, if you haven't been part of my live streams, normally what I do is I will put the start time for the live stream down in the description. I always try to make sure I do that. It will go unlisted because it's a live stream. That means that unless you have subscribed, hit the bell button, and you have made sure your notifications are turned on, you won't be able to access the live stream. But if you're a patron, you can, because I make sure they get access to them. But as long as you've got subscribed, bell button, and notifications turned on, you should be able to get to the live stream later on if you need to leave for whatever reason. But even if you can't watch the live stream, I do an edited version, but I cut out all of the Q&A at the end of my live stream, so that won't be included. Now, is that Fonordoth? Hi, Fonordoth. I think if I got your name wrong, I do apologize. So, normally what I do with my live streams is I present everything first, and then I open it up for questions and answers. And that's exactly what I'm going to do. You will get to see my face, but I will use a lot of slides and pictures today, which I tend to do. Okay, drink of water. Let's get this topic going, right? Let's start talking about lazy dungeon masters. Hi, welcome to HowtoDandD. My name is Fred Wheeler, and today I want to talk about Dungeons and Dragons. Now, I'm probably going to talk about Dungeons and Dragons 5e, but to be fair, this can be related to Dungeons and Dragons 5e, 4e, 3.5, Pathfinder. It really doesn't matter. I've played quite a few different versions of the game, certainly not all the way back, but I've run a lot of their adventures. So that's the idea for today. Now, the topic in particular is Dungeon Masters not checking character sheets is lazy. Now, why would that be lazy? I want to explain what's going on here and what my message is for today. So checking character sheets is done for a few different reasons by Dungeon Masters. The first most common reason that a Dungeon Master will check a player's character sheet is they are concerned that the player has made a mistake or an error. This happens. It's quite normal, particularly with new players or people who aren't very experienced, and even experienced players make mistakes on their character sheet. So there's a really good reason why a Dungeon Master might decide to do that. The other reason might be because they are concerned that the player might be cheating, and that information might be, if the player is not very bright, be communicated and written down on their character sheet. And so if they can look at the numbers and calculate everything, they can see if they're cheating with their numbers. They can have a look at the items on their character sheet and see if they've got extra items that they did not allocate to the player at some point, or any player whatsoever. So there's another reason why you might check your player's character sheet. Then there are those Dungeon Masters who want to know what the character or the player's character has in terms of abilities and spells and equipment, and their intention is to plan their adventure around the different things that particular character can do and that the player has built in some way. They're essentially using a form of metagaming But perfectly legitimate. I'm not saying it's a bad thing, and I've done videos on metagaming, and I've explained that I do not believe that all forms of metagaming are actually bad, and that really at any time, whether it be a player or a dungeon master, there has to be some sort of metagaming taking place. Otherwise, the whole thing just falls apart. I know a lot of people find that hard to understand. Then there are those dungeon masters who want to make a copy of the character sheet. Now, they don't just want to check the character sheet to make sure all of the things are correct and there's no mistakes and nobody's cheating or planned for their adventure, but the reason and rationale is they want to make a copy, so whether it be a photocopy or a digital copy. Now, they do this in case the players forget their character sheet when it's game day, and when the session comes round and somebody shows up, oh, I left my character sheet at home. I can't play now. Now, I'm sure there's a few dungeon masters who have come across this happening at their game table from time to time. Here's the thing though, checking a character sheet for a player, it takes time, it takes effort from the dungeon master, and it takes motivation. So you have to be motivated as a dungeon master. It is going to consume time and effort. Now, I'm sure there are some dungeon masters out there who can check a character sheet for all of their players' characters very quickly, or maybe they just do one player character sheet each week and they'll check everything and they just rotate until they get through the entire group, and then of course they're satisfied that everything is working the way it should be and that they have managed everything correctly. But I want to talk about another way of doing things. Not checking a player's character sheet is lazy. I would absolutely agree with that. But there are other reasons why you might not check a player's character sheet. And I want to explain what I'm talking about here. I've got quite a few different things I want to discuss, and I'll explain why you might decide that this isn't actually the thing for me. Personally, I don't check a player's character sheet even when they come and offer it to me. I just don't do that. Now, why don't I do that? I used to, and then I stopped doing it. So, why you might not check a player's character sheet? It's really, for me, it's about micromanagement of the game. I feel like that level of micromanagement and control from a dungeon master is intrusive. Now, it is intrusive. Whether you've done it for a legitimate reason, it's still intrusive on the player. I like the idea that I'm not the only one who is contributing to the game and its management. It shouldn't just be about the dungeon master. So one of my key reasons why I don't do it is because it's micromanaging the whole situation, trying to control and make sure everything works. It's the same sort of issue that a dungeon master suffers when they start wanting to make sure that every combat encounter is balanced and always works out exactly the way supposedly the challenge rating formula for Dungeons & Dragons 5e would suggest, or whatever calculation or form of Dungeons & Dragons you're using, that everything is going to be fair, that everything is designed in a particular way with a particular outcome. And yet we can't control all of those things. And I don't think it's actually very healthy as a dungeon master to try to control literally every single thing at the table. Players will have errors. This will happen. There is always going to be, at some point, they're going to create an error on their character sheet. That's a guarantee. It doesn't matter whether they are a beginner, they're an intermediate player, or a very experienced player, it's going to happen. But for me, I want the player to have errors on their character sheet so that they learn to spot those errors and correct them themselves, rather than me as a dungeon master having to point out and say, look, you've calculated your to hit modifier incorrectly. You've added your proficiency modifier twice because there's an extra 2 on your level 1 character. You're supposed to be adding for your melee attack, it's supposed to be your strength modifier, in this case with this particular weapon, and your proficiency modifier because you are proficient with the weapon. You don't add it twice. I want them to actually take responsibility and learn to spot those errors themselves. I don't want to be constantly having to explain to them what's going on at the table and how to run their own character sheet. Here's something that might surprise you. I don't care if players cheat. Here's the thing. I know I run a channel that deals with game rules for Dungeons & Dragons 5e. I know I do hundreds of videos on the topic, which would make you think that I am tied to the rules in some way. But see, for me, I don't worry about that. If I get a new player or I have a player who is cheating at the table, it will come out. It will come out in the wash. Eventually, it will become obvious to me and to other players at the table. It's not something you can hide indefinitely. That then tells me the type of person they are in terms of how they play. But there's more going on than just that. It's not just determining and showing to me what sort of person they are in terms of playing a game. There may in fact be issues with the player and their understanding of Dungeons & Dragons, because when it comes to playing any kind of game, right, a lot of people still have the understanding that a game consists of a competitive element where they still see the Dungeon Master is playing against the other players, and therefore this is a game that needs to be won. There's a winner, there's a loser, and the dice are a random element, and the rest comes down to calculating probabilities and selecting the right abilities and features in the game and taking actions that will make sure you are successful. Whereas this is it's not a competitive game, it's a cooperative game. And it's not just a cooperative game between the players who are then up against the Dungeon Master, it's cooperative between the players and the Dungeon Master. So there's an issue for a player who is cheating at my table. They may not understand that concept, and that's something that needs to be explained, and they need to see that by playing the game. And therefore, there needs to be, I'm a big believer in making mistakes. I believe that learning from your own personal experience is much more valuable than learning from somebody else's experience. Provided it doesn't result in a fatality, it's all good, right? So that's one of the things I really sort of stick to. The other element to players cheating, and why I don't care if a player cheats at my table, is that might be actually showing that there's some sort of really poor development or relationship between the player and the Dungeon Master. And that relationship may be just quite new. And as time passes, that relationship will change. They will learn to trust their Dungeon Master. They will start to understand that the Dungeon Master is not against them. They are presenting things that certainly could potentially kill their character or result in them having a failure with a quest or an objective and stuff like that. But we're trying to build a relationship, and we have to start somewhere. And if starting somewhere means that players cheat, then so be it. I have had many players cheat at my table, not just make an error or a mistake, but literally cheat. And when it comes up, I do not take them away to the side. I do deal with it right there at the table, and I explain to them, look, you don't need to do that. You know, if your character dies, I don't have an issue with you playing the character. You know, if it dies, I don't have a problem. If we can negotiate something and sort something out. So don't feel like you have to be playing against me. That's not really where I'm at. I want players to be responsible for their own character sheet. As the Dungeon Master, you, and if I'm a Dungeon Master, I have enough work to do as a Dungeon Master. So does everybody else. If you're Dungeon Mastering, you've got a whole lot of things you have to keep track of. The last thing you need is to constantly need to check somebody's character sheet to make sure it's correct. That is just a whole lot of extra work. I don't want to get involved in that. I want players to understand that I trust them. I want them to understand, particularly when they offer their character sheet to me, I want them to understand that I trust how they play the game, and that it's normal, that that the process of learning that trust is not immediate. Trust is not given immediately. You actually have to earn that. It's done over time. It is not something that is given immediately. You do actually have to learn it. I also need them to understand and trust me that we're not playing a normal competitive game, that this game is not like any other game they've ever played before. And I can only do that by allowing some time to pass and build that trust and relationship with them. If I can't trust the players with their character sheet, then why am I playing with them? I don't expect it immediately, but as time passes, why am I playing with somebody who I cannot trust with their character sheet? I want people at my table who I can trust, who I feel are good friends, who I feel are people that I want to be around, not just somebody to fill a slot and a space at my table so that I have the required number of players at my table, or to fill out the group so they have a better advantage with it in terms of success when they are going through their quests. I want everybody at my table to be my friend, and I don't have friends that I don't trust. If I don't trust them, they're not my friend. That's how I see it. Now, like I said, trust is built over time. I do not expect it straight away. So another reason why I don't check character sheets. The thing is, other players at your table will notice issues with the player's character sheet. They will actually see it. One, particularly if a player is adamant and always hides their character sheet and doesn't lay it out so that everybody else can see it at the table, and always sort of tucks it under a book and sort of lifts things up, and you can see that they're sort of, what they're doing is they're doing what you do when you play poker. You hide your cards, and you hide your cards from everybody at the table because you are treating the game as a competitive game. When players see that, and they'll start to notice things, and they will actually notice problems in terms of the mathematics of the game if people are cheating. So other players will notice issues with a player's character sheet. I have seen many players spot errors on somebody else's character sheet, usually when they're rolling dice and adding things up, and they say, look, do you know that you've actually added that up incorrectly on your character sheet, and your attack modifier or your damage modifier, or how you calculate how many hit points you get back when you use a hit dice during a short rest is incorrect? And they will correct a lot of those problems for you. You don't have to do that as a dungeon master. You've got a whole bunch of other people who will help police that if you really feel like it needs to be policed. But usually it's just good-natured assistance as far as I'm concerned. Dungeon masters don't need to know absolutely everything on a player's character sheet. There are certain things. We need to know their name. We need to know their passive perception if you're using passive perception. It would be nice to know things like their personality traits or flaws, bonds, ideals, but usually I don't even worry about all of that. I just want to know what your flaw is. All of the other stuff I will learn as they play the character, and usually when players introduce their characters at the beginning of a campaign, you get a rundown, and I usually jot down notes. So those are the sorts of things I'm going to take down. But I don't need to know absolutely every ability that the character has. All I need to know is how it works when they put it into place during combat or outside of combat when we're playing the game, whether they are involved in a battle or in a social interaction, or they're trying to achieve something in terms of exploration and they want to use a skill of some kind. There's not a lot of stuff I need to know. In fact, I don't even worry about armor class, because armor class can be modified by spells and by cover. And therefore, I don't need to know that particular information. You can list it down, and there are certainly probably dungeon masters who would list down other items that they feel are important, but I don't worry about that sort of stuff. I don't keep or make copies of players' character sheets. Why don't I do that? One of the things when it comes to being a dungeon master that I tell all of my players is, look, I'm happy for you to have a paper copy of your character sheet. That's fine. Have no issue. But if you have a cell phone, a smartphone that can download an app that will track your character sheet, This is going to solve a lot of your problems. Make sure you have the digital version of your character sheet on your phone and update it. Make sure it's updated from your paper copy. That means usually players do not forget their phone. They might forget their character sheet, but they will not forget their phone. That has been my experience. So I'm trying to move them into an area in their life where they are taking responsibility. Now, I play with a lot of adults, but I also have played with children, and I approach everything exactly the same way. I want players to learn to bring their character sheet rather than rely on me or the Dungeon Master. I want them to take responsibility. It's all about responsibility for me in terms of playing the game, and particularly with regard to something like character sheets. Okay, so here's the thing. I know a few people are probably chiming in and saying, well, yeah, but hang on, Fred, there are other things going on here. You're telling me you never look at a player's character sheet ever. No, that's not true. I very rarely do so. There are certain circumstances where I do actually have a look at the character sheet and do inspect it. And usually that is around the character creation process. So during a session 0, or if somebody is very new to the game, so new players building a character at the time, I will help them build that character. I will explain how to calculate things. I will check their character sheet to make sure they have done it correctly if they're just using paper. Often I will refer them to a digital app that does all of the calculations and builds everything so there is no errors, and that the chance of there being a mistake or cheating doesn't really come into play because the phone app is doing all of the work, and then they're going to transfer all of that over to their paper copy. So that's it for me. Pardon me. So that is my rationale. I do not believe that you are being a bad person or a bad dungeon master by not checking character sheets. Now, if you found this video helpful or informative, fantastic. I have a series of videos on being a lazy dungeon master. And as it happens, there is a guy called Sly Flourish who put out a book called Return of the Lazy Dungeon Master. And I recommend checking that book out if you have the inclination and the money, because it would cost you a bit of money to purchase it. Now, I have hundreds of videos for players and dungeon masters. If you are interested, you're welcome to go and check those out. If you want to support the channel so I keep doing videos like this, then you can check me out on Patreon, where you get access to the unlisted live streams. I have a merchandise shelf, and I have affiliate links to the book depository and Amazon. Make sure to share, like, and subscribe. Hit the bell button to be notified when I go live and when I publish new videos. And hey, till next time, keep rolling those 20s. Sorry, but I'm not gone. My voice almost cracked on me. And hopefully I was able to communicate everything clearly enough. You will see my face, don't worry. I'm not going to sort of just leave it with that. We are definitely going back to my face. Where is it? There we go. Let's go and have a look at the live chat and see what people have had to say. I know that this can be a very contentious issue, checking character sheets. Now, for those of you who check character sheets and are a dungeon master, please do not get offended that I have said that, don't worry about checking character sheets. Just my opinion, just how I do it. I have explained why I do it that way. You don't have to do it that way. I've always told people when it comes to doing anything, try everything at least twice before you ditch it. And I'm just trying to present you with another way of doing something and see if it works for you. Okay, all right, so questions and answers could be related to, your questions can be related to character sheets and what you do with them, could be related to a question just being a player. I don't mind answering any of those questions. I am happy to answer questions about different topics that are something that you might be interested in as a dungeon master. It does not have to be on the title of this particular video or live stream. So you do not have to worry about that sort of stuff. I need another drink of water. For whatever reason, my throat has gone all funny. Yes, they're all here. Everybody is showing up. Okay, so let's scroll on down here. I do apologise if I sound a bit raspy. I did get a bit raspy, didn't I? Okay, so Imadad, I wholeheartedly concur. Let them play the game they want to play. Good, cool. Luna, how's it going? Hi. I absolutely fudge dice, lie about HP or hit points, and flat out make stuff up when I think it's cool. Yeah, look, I don't fudge dice anymore, but I used to. I mean, I've just accepted that the dice will roll badly for players and for monsters, and there's always more monsters as far as I'm concerned. But, you know, I don't usually lie that much about hit points, but I have, particularly, I think I would adjust hit points on the fly when they've only had one round of combat and they've found the encounter really easy. And I do present easy encounters to players deliberately. I don't accidentally do that. I do that quite deliberately because I want to let them feel like they are important and powerful, but I want to bring them into a false sense of security so that when the big battle comes out, they are a bit shocked. Because I know that players can get a little bit rambunctious and a little bit too sure of themselves. But I don't like the idea when we get through a combat that somebody might have missed their turn. We get to the end of the round and there's nothing left for them to do and they miss out completely. And that's a really sort of a sucky situation. So it's a good time to adjust hit points. Okay. It's my eyes. Oh, would you believe it? My glasses aren't helping me today. I'll take them off. Lucido, I think I got your name correct. I apologise if I got it wrong. I like this. I'm thinking of starting to master and make players responsible. Makes total sense. Yes, it is. It makes total sense. And to make players responsible for their character sheets so you don't have to do all of the work, you have to trust them and you have to let them make mistakes. And it's not just make mistakes. You need to allow them to cheat, because some of them will. Some of them will make deliberate efforts to cheat. But this is part of their learning so that they learn to stop doing that. And it's about, like I said, it's about making them understand what Dungeons and Dragons is rather than what they think it is, and building a strong relationship with them. And you have to open it up to that. If you don't ever open it up, they will never learn to be responsible. And they will, if you've got somebody who always cheats at their table, there's a chance they might always cheat no matter what. And those are people that you will decide whether you want at your table or not. Then there are those people who will cheat if you're really worried about that sort of stuff, and they will adjust what they do because they suddenly realize they don't have to stress about all the things they were worried about before. And that's really important too. What's that, Joe? 100% agree, Fred. I help them if they need help. Exactly. I help people. If they ask for help, I will certainly look at a character sheet and assist them. Or I look at their sheet to remember backgrounds and stuff. See, I don't even bother looking at the character sheet. I will just say, just tell me what some of your elements are. I need to know that they're a rogue or they are a wizard. That's probably about the extent of it. I need to know what level they are. If my group is all supposed to be level 10 and I find out, hey, your character sheet says you're level 8, you do realise you've missed 2 levels. You should be level 10 now. They've been away for a while, they've come back, they've missed that sort of stuff. Those are sorts of things that are sort of normal, but I don't go through and check. Usually at the beginning of a session, particularly if people have been away, I'll just say, look, does everybody know we are level 10? You should be level 10. Often, as I said, players will pipe up and say, hey, Simon, do you know we're actually level 10? You were away before, we actually leveled up, so you should be another level now. Oh, okay, all right, so then they'll sort that out. And whether they do that before the session or after the session or during the session, I don't really worry about it, but I'm not going to stop the game, I'm still going to play. Joe, I do grab the sheet when a Norfolk is in the room with them. Ah, okay. I suspect there's a reason for why you do that, Joe. As I said, just because I don't check character sheets very rarely doesn't mean you can't check character sheets for players. Okay, so stick with me. Kinoko, hello. Frank, everyone just calls me Kuro. Though you're saying Kinoko is fine too. Laugh out loud. So I did get it wrong. Kuro. Yeah, so I feel like that's bad. I feel like Kuro is probably wrong as well. And if you keep showing up in my live streams, we're going to have to sort it out. Although right now it won't matter in the slightest because I'm losing my voice. Right, if you have any questions about anything in particular, hashtag or @Fred. You can call me Frank if you like. You can call me Rick. I'll figure it out. Oh, dear. Another drink of water. Oh, okay, so what else have we got here? Oh, spilled my drink. Sorry about that. Let's see, what else we've got here. Any particular player sheet app you find good? Yes, I do. I use the 5th edition character sheet. There are plenty of other character sheets out there, but I use that one because the cost of using it is minuscule. You can download it for free and play a level 1 character, decide whether you like it, and if you do want it, I think it's like $1 something. It's not very expensive. It is probably, I've found that it's been the most accurate out of all the character sheet apps that I've seen so far, and I've done a review on that particular app. So if you look in the playlists under smartphones, you should find that particular app reviewed. 5th edition character sheet. Pardon me. Luna, what do you got here? Luna Firefox. With paper character sheets, I found some that are class specific. What do you think of that? I don't have an issue with that. If people want to have a custom character sheet that's designed specifically for a particular class, that makes a lot of sense, because some character sheets need to be longer and have more information on them. I'm looking at full casters, and then there are other character sheets that don't need all of that, and so therefore it makes sense that they can have a much more refined and a smaller, with less pages and less details on it. And that's all perfectly fine. So yeah, absolutely. If I want to use a specific character sheet, let them go for it. I had players who would come up and they'd make little initiative tracker tags or table tents or whatever you want to call them, and they would print them out for everybody and put little pictures on them and then find all the stats from people. They did that themselves. I didn't have to do that. It's great when they take responsibility and do stuff so you don't have to do it. I don't even have to write it down. When I do initiative, often I will get them to roll initiative before the game session, and I just give them their player tag that I hang over my Dungeon Master screen. I don't fill out any of that. I just say, okay, update your little tag, put in your new initiatives, and I might take down anywhere from 1 to 5 different initiative rolls that they've made in advance, so I don't have to worry and wait for them to roll initiative. I can just move things around and cross things out pretty quickly. By the way, really nice hat. Thank you, Luna. I've been wearing this hat, as you might have discovered, for quite some time, because some of those photos actually have me wearing that hat when I was quite a bit younger than I am now, quite a few years back. So, John, hi John, how's it going? I look at calculation at caricature sheets for beginner players. Oh, you look at character sheets for beginners. Yeah, well, I do too. I will help them, particularly for a beginner, but I don't usually do that myself. Certainly does help them review and figure out things, absolutely. But if they build the character away from me and they show up at the table, often what I will do is I won't check the character sheet. If they are like really concerned and I do not have time because I'm doing other stuff, I'll go and approach and ask one of my experienced players, look, can you have a quick look over their character sheet to make sure everything is in place? And I recommend doing that. It is so much easier when you have somebody at your table who knows how to build the character rather than have to go and check everything yourself. Because usually the errors and mistakes always consist in the calculation of hit points, figuring out how many hit points they get back when they spend hit dice, things like how much damage they do. A lot of those things are really easy, and they're on the first page. They're very, very simple. You know, they're calculations for the DCs for spells, if they're casting spells, their attack modifier, if they're casting a spell as well. All of these sorts of things you can leave to another player who's experienced to check rather than do it yourself. Okay, and I always pick somebody that I feel like has been playing with me for a while, that I trust, who I know is responsible, and I know will do it and is willing to actually partake in assisting me. Reduces a lot of your headache. Kuro, thanks for the great advice. New DM here, and all new players mostly. 3 adults and 2 children. Yep. So here's the thing. With children, I will often give them a pre-made character sheet, but when they want to start building their own character, I will usually sit with them as they're building the character and help them figure out this sort of stuff. Because not all children will have access to a smartphone or a cell phone, so it doesn't make sense to go through that process. But I will have my own phone there, and I'll say, okay, so what do you want to do? Okay, so write that down in that little space there, and I'll plug it into my phone, and bam. Okay, all right, we've got all the elements that we need. We know what your race is. We know what your ability modifiers are going to be. We know what your class is. You've picked a background, plug it in. Here are the numbers. Now, I want you to write down off my phone all these numbers, because this is all done it for you correctly. You don't even have to figure out the mathematics. You just copy it off my phone. So that's what I tend to do with children. It makes it a lot easier. I do have a question. One of the kids doesn't like the character they're playing. We've already agreed their character should should I use former character or just remove altogether? So here's what I would suggest to you. I use one of the problems with Dungeons and Dragons, whether it be 3.5 or 4E or 5E or Pathfinder, is it's very hard for a player to understand whether the character they're playing is the character they want and whether the mechanical elements work in line with what they are after and what will make them happy. So I always tell my players, look, before your game session or after the game session, you can change everything. The only thing you can't change is your character name and your equipment in gold. Everything else you can alter. I do not care. And that means that they can make adjustments, and they'll often say, look, I changed this around because I didn't really like that. And I said, oh, that's fine. Okay. I don't really get connected to those sort of things and lock everything down. If you feel you need to lock that down, you can, but I do not get myself involved in that. When it comes to children, children will have a very short attention span. They will need to rotate and change their character quite a bit. Once a child, and I'm talking under 12, actually establishes the character they like and they don't make changes, you know you have had a miracle. It's like suddenly this big concrete wall has been smashed down. So I usually leave those sorts of things open. Do you think that perhaps using inspiration might help to build the player DM trust relationship? Do you use inspiration? Yes, I do. I think you should award inspiration outside of what the player's handbook and the Dungeon Master guide suggests. I think you should use inspiration much more general than just the very specifics. You know, normally you're supposed to play to your character's flaw. Do something that disadvantages you to get it because you play to your character flaw. But open it up to other aspects. And it's not just about that. honestly, a lot of the headache that you will have with your players in terms of trust between a dungeon master and the players is the fact that they're playing a character they do not want to lose. Now, I have no issues, and people know this if you've watched my channel, I have no issues with a character dying. Okay? Just because a character dies, I'm not going to stop that from happening. It's going to happen. But I will not insist that they have to make a new character. If they want to make a new character, I've often found then when you give players that option and say, look, your character died, nothing within the party would allow you to bring the character back. Do you want to still continue playing the character, or do you want to make another character? And usually my players will say, well, thank you for the offer, Fred, but I think I will make another character. And I'll think, okay, that's fine. But I always give them that option. That removes the headache and stress that players have when they get a character that they love so much and they want to keep playing. I know that if they have a character that they love so much that even if it dies, they want to keep playing it rather than make another character, that's the right character for them. That's just how I see it. I don't try to get myself married to those sorts of things. You do not have to do it that way, though. You are the dungeon master. You can do it a different way. And I know a lot of players who don't like it when they say, when I say, look, it's your choice. But they're like, no, Fred. I know you're giving me that choice, but when my character dies and nobody in the party can bring it back to life, I'm going to build a new character. And that's fine. It's all good. Darren, Kuro, I let my new players in the starter set make any changes they want until 5th level, even race. Yep. I mean, the Dungeons & Dragons Adventurers League actually helped me work myself towards this, because you can change everything apart from your character name and your gear from level 1 to level 4, and this helps them sort of establish what they like. But I decided that when I was dungeon mastering outside of public games and I wasn't using Dungeons & Dragons Adventurers League, that I'll make that option available right through from level 1 to level 20. It's nothing worse than getting a character to level 15 or 16 and suddenly you pick an ability or do something and then you regret it. And you're locked down. I wish I hadn't done that. Can I change it? So I just make sure that's always open to the players. Alec, how's it going? Fred, yes. Do you have a fictional nickname you use for yourself? One that you use frequently across games? No, I don't have a fictional name that I use across Dungeons & Dragons games. I don't have a fictional character name that I use. But Alec, I do have a fictional name. Okay. Alright, I suppose I will let you know what it is. Promethean. Now, the only reason I have always sort of been stuck on that particular name is because of Prometheus. I think I pronounced it correctly. It's a bit hard to say anything right now. From Greek mythology, this is a titan who was chained to a wall and basically by Zeus and the gods, and had his, I think it was his liver, pecked out by a bird every single day. This is because he gave fire to man, and therefore that was deemed by the gods as something you shouldn't do. So I like that name a lot. So I've always sort of considered that a name that I would use as a fictional name, but I don't ever use it in a Dungeons & Dragons game. Okay, Luna, what do you got here? Yeah, the players love it because the general class features are already in there. Okay, all right. Well, players that are experienced that help the DM, I call them DM assistants. Yeah, got to use the players at the table that are experienced and know what they're doing. It will reduce your workload immensely. And let's get real. Not all of us have huge quantities of time. This is why I do the Lazy Dungeon Master series, to help you work through eliminating some of the things you don't actually have to do. Okay, I just need a drink of water. We're working our way through the chat pretty quickly. Remember, you can ask me any question whatsoever. Doesn't need to be related to the topic of this live stream. Doesn't matter if you're a player or a dungeon master. And if you have feedback, fire it out. Okay, Leon Gunnett, how's it going? Yeah, notifications can be a bit of a bummer, eh? But at least if you've got notifications turned on, you can still should be able to go back and access the live stream later on if you need to leave right now. Hi Fred, how's it going? Fred Hubba. Local DM got bit by not chewing sheets. He said, point by, one player had 4 18s at level 2. See, so local DM got bit by not checking sheets. Dear. Point by 4 18s at level 2. Yeah, but see, that's pretty obvious. That's going to pop out. That's going to be pretty obvious. You're not going to be able to hide that very well. Yeah, well, he might be a dice cheat as well. But look, see, that is something that the whole idea is we want to move people away from thinking that that's how they need to approach it. Their view of the game may be the game that they played as a kid or been grown up. Most people still think that Dungeons and Dragons is chess, and huge numbers of nerds and other people who invested their time in playing something like chess, because that was a very difficult game and it was very required a lot of brain power and a lot of planning, got bored playing chess, and they move on to Dungeons and Dragons, and they still bring that same sort of competitive element. So it's trying to get them to understand they don't need to worry about having 4 18s on their character sheet. Alec, awesome, thanks for that. You're welcome, Alec. The Carter videos. What's that? You ever mixed other RPG machines with D&D? Yes, I have. I've mixed all sorts of things. I have taken mechanics from other games and put them into my Dungeons and Dragons game. I do not do it very often. I try right now, this year, and I think part of last year, I have been presenting more and more of the variant rules that I have used in the past or that I plan to use. Most of them are ones that I have actually used in my game. Whether I'm the dungeon master or a player, and that I've asked a dungeon master, can we trial this as a rule at the game? So I do that. That happens quite a lot. And I will take and incorporate concepts from other games. A lot of the things I talk about are just taken from Fate, taken from Bulldogs, which is just another version of Fate, really. Taken from Star Wars Saga, which is another sort of D20 game, and other types of role-play games that I've played over the years, and just other games in general. I will incorporate some of that stuff. I don't do it a lot, though. Only when I feel like it's going to be beneficial, and there's a good reason for doing it. I do not like to change things too much for players so they feel like they don't have a stable foundation. Okay. Hi, Jonathan. How's it going? How do you deal with devices at the table, i.e. phones? Okay, Jonathan. Here we go. I exploit my players' insistence on using phones at the table. I mean, I suppose you could say I use it against them, but actually what I do is I don't say you can't have phones at the table. My only criteria is that they do not make a phone call at the table with their phone. If they need to take a phone call, I ask them to just apologise and move and take the phone call away from the table so we can continue playing. In terms of texting, I don't generally even worry about that. I don't know what the texting's about. For all I know, if they're texting on their phone, it could be because they're communicating with their kids and something's gone wrong and they need to make sure they're all right and safe. Or it might be that they are just chatting with somebody, their girlfriend, and they feel like they've got a bit of downtime between doing other things. If players are on their phone and I don't feel like they have a legitimate reason to ask me, oh, what happened, because they weren't paying attention, then I just won't repeat what I said. I'll say, well, you better ask somebody else because I'm not going to explain it and we're not going to stop. So I guess you have imperfect information right now. So I don't stop phones. And usually what I try to do with their phone is I will present them, which is why I've done a whole lot of reviews on phone apps for smartphones deliberately. And then I push my players to go and watch those videos. And I would encourage you as a dungeon master to get your players to watch those videos as well, as I put out videos on phone apps for their character builder. So they're using their phone. If they're using their phone for their character sheet, then they can't be using their phone to do other things because they're scrolling through their character sheet on their phone, right? And if they need to know about different spells, then I'll suggest a phone app for spells so they can review their spells on their phone, because they often like to do that rather than out of the player's handbook because it's heavy, and they'll review them and they're, oh, okay, that's how that works, da da da. So now I'm getting them to chew up their time on their phone, and they're still playing Dungeons and Dragons. If they are a shape changer, then there is a phone app for animal companions or just animals, or a bestiary. There's a new phone app that's just come out. I should do a review on it, called the 5e Bestiary. It's awesome. And if they are having to transform into different things, then they can use that app and they can favorite them and pull them up quickly. And so what I've done is I've utilized the phone and the laptop as another tool for playing Dungeons and Dragons. And the more tools that I can push them towards to use, the more time that device is used for playing the game rather than engaging and checking Facebook or playing Pokemon Go. Or Pokemon Go was a real problem. I remember I had one session I watched that go on, but it did not last forever. It was actually like a fad, and then after that it all just wore out. So it was about dealing with that one session, let them go at it, they'll be out of their system, run out of data, move on, okay? And then things like phone apps for character names, if they want to make up a character name, or I know a lot of people like to have different dialogue that they can use. So there's a phone app that allows you different types of insults. So if you're a bard and you're playing a character who likes to insult people with vicious mockery, then they have a phone app and they can go through and pick an insult that they feel like would be suitable, and it's done very quickly for them. So you use the phone as a tool for the players to play the game, and then you get them away from doing all the other things to do with social media and just mucking around on their phone for other reasons. Okay? Thank you so much for the class and answers. You're welcome, no problems. I've just recently found your channel while researching and added and creating courage to run Lost Mine of Phandelver. Yeah, about 70% of my traffic is from a Google search or a search on YouTube, apparently, which is a bit of a shame. It would have been nice if 70% was a result of YouTube recommending or suggesting my videos, but that's not the case anymore, unfortunately. Used to be. And immediately before loyal subscriber. I'm glad you are a loyal subscriber. I do appreciate it. Good night, by the way. And if you've already gone, I do apologise that I didn't get to your comment fast enough. I've run out of water, so if I start to get too crackly, you'll know I've had to leave for a good reason. Double Deuce 2012. Howdy. So what are we talking about today? Well, I've been talking about character sheets and not checking the character sheet, and some of the reasons why you might not worry about checking the character sheet, and how you can spend your time better served doing other things and help you and basically build a better relationship at the game table. A lot of that was sort of talked about. Luna, Fred, okay, I made a character who is a rapier wielding hobgoblin. War wizard. Oh my gosh. But he only has 2.5 years of his life, and my DM gave me background gear, but no name of the background. What do you think? Well, look, see, one of the things is you can make your own backgrounds. Have a talk to your dungeon master and say, look, if you want a background, look, can I use, if I come up with, there's a basic template for a background, and you can come up with some ideas around what your background might be. But it's all right if you're playing a character and you're just using some basics and you're not really using a background, and it's just background gear and nothing else, that's fine. But if you want a background, have a talk to your Dungeon Master and say, look, can I have a background? And if I can't have the ones that are here, can I create one that would fit my character? What's that, Fred? We use Ardoon Grimoire tables for PC descriptions. There are some really wild tables for hair color and so forth. Fair enough. Cool. What's that, Luna? Well, the character knows only 2.5 years of his life. Yeah, but I mean, I wouldn't really get too caught up in that. That's a very young hobgoblin. But yeah, if your Dungeon Master feels like you wouldn't have very many skills or other aspects and that giving them a background is too soon, then so be it. If you're happy with that, that's fine. If you're not, then say so and let your Dungeon Master say, look, can we make my hobgoblin a bit older rather than 2.5 years? Summit. Hi, Fred. Okay, yeah. Hi, how's it going? About the phones, all my players use digital character sheets, so I'm fine with the phones. Yeah. If they miss something, they miss it. I respect their choices and trust them to listen. That's right. And if they don't listen, they made the choice not to listen. That's one of the things you have to understand. If players are going to use their time to do other things, and often you're playing with adults, you're not playing with a child who you're trying to teach something. You know, you are not the teacher with the ruler who slaps them on the hand because they did something bad. You've got to treat them like an equal. Otherwise, it doesn't work very well. Rivers RPG channel, how's it going? Jonathan, great info, much appreciated. You're welcome. Luna, Fred, what do you got here? And for your voice, maybe drink some of the mint tea with honey. I can't have honey. It would make a mess of my stomach. I can probably get away with mint tea, but without the honey, it's not going to really do anything, unfortunately. What's the app with the bard insults? Oh, gosh, off the top of my head, I can't remember. I will endeavour to do a video on the topic. If I remember, I will post it. I'll put it somewhere. I'll let you know, okay, Jonathan? I cannot remember. I know Simon used it a lot. He was insistent on using it. He wanted to use an insult every single time he used vicious mockery. Okay, I think this is a good time to stop. It's been an hour and my voice is about to be lost. Gone forever. Well, not gone forever, but certainly lost in translation somehow. So I think this is a good point to sort of stop. And I'm going to say my normal out, which is wherever you are in the world, look, whether it be morning, afternoon, night, evening, look after your family and your friends and yourself. And hey, till next time, keep rolling those 20s.